aqui eles estão me prometendo que vão fazer uma apresentação sobre o que faz a cafeína tão energizante. Vamos ver. Gosto.
Hey, Steve. So, as you know, I'm a huge fan of coffee and caffeine. I love tea and occasional energy drink here and there. So, why is caffeine so energizing?
Well, this isn't exactly why caffeine is so energizing, but it turns out that caffeine is actually super similar to another compound called adenosine, which is a byproduct of ATP or adenosine triphosphate, which our body uses as a major source of energy.
Got it. So it's kind of like the tired molecule because ATP is energy and this is a byproduct. So after it uses ATP, it this is what your cells and stuff spits out in order to tell your body that you should get tired now, right? And so I remember that meme. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, and so the mitochondria produces ATP for the rest of your cell, and then this is what comes after that, right?
Exactly. And so, what happens is you actually have this adenosine A2A receptor right here, which is a GPCR or G protein coupled receptor that sits on the surface of your cell. So you would have your cell out here, and then this would be just on the surface detecting different chemicals. And what it would normally have bound here is adenosine, but the structure that I pulled up here is actually the caffeine. And so what happens is when adenosine tries to go in, but the caffeine's already there, it can't get in. And so this adenosine, when you use a lot of energy, your body's chopping up all this adenosine triphosphate. You end up with this adenosine, and your body will then feel tired when this goes in and binds with your adenosine A2A receptor. But because the caffeine is there, it actually can't get in, and so it doesn't send that signal to your brain to tell you to feel tired.
So backing up a little, just so for those of you who aren't familiar with receptors and cells and stuff like that, your body is made out of
Que interessante. Então, a cafeína vai dentro da mitocôndria e evita que eu tenha a sensação de cansaço. Muito bom. Ó, e tem uma outra pessoa aqui. Mike Kills. Olá. Hi. Hello. Sem muita interação humana. Bom, mas é interessante ver como esse processo da cafeína funciona.
organs like the heart and the brain, most famously your skin being the biggest organ that you have. And so your organs are made out of tissues, which are essentially smaller parts of the organ. And then that tissue is made out of thousands, millions of different cells, right? You've probably seen one under a microscope, maybe like a plant cell in high school or something like that. And so those cells are made out of, millions and billions of proteins, one of which we have here. And a receptor is a type of protein. And so this protein basically sits on the outer edges of the cell, and it kind of acts like a watchtower for this one particular molecule called adenosine. And again, because the watchtower's job basically is to let the body know that it's tired when this thing, the adenosine, binds. But because caffeine's so similar, it can bind there instead of adenosine. And it, because it's not exactly the same as adenosine, it doesn't make the body tired, but because it's similar enough, it blocks the adenosine from actually entering, which is just so fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like Kate was saying, you would have this huge cell out here that would just really have this tiny protein on the surface, which of course this protein itself is also made out of atoms and molecules. It's just in this ribbon representation, so we could better see the structure here. It is trying to detect adenosine. This specific protein is called the adenosine A2A receptor because it's out there trying to detect the adenosine. And what happens is it also detects, other or compounds, that also are similar to adenosine also bind to it. And so you can see here that this caffeine has made its way in. And there's going to be very subtle changes and modulations between the naturally bound adenosine compound and the A2A receptor versus the caffeine that's bound here.
So this one is the one with adenosine bounded. So that's like the natural state. And then this one is the one where caffeine's bounded. So, we use this metaphor in biochemistry, molecular biology called the lock and key mechanism, where basically these proteins are kind of like locks and these molecules are basically like keys. And so you can really see when you overlay them like this in VR and AR that like basically, just how similar these keys are enough such that then it works on the same lock, right?
Exactly. And so you could see that the adenosine and the caffeine actually are bound in a very similar location here. And so what happens, if one's already bound, the other one, it's not going to have room to get into there because they're already bound in the same spot. And what happens, when these things bind, they all really interact with the protein. And the protein, these things are always dynamically moving, but they're gonna end up changing shape slightly, and your body actually uses this as a way of understanding information about what chemicals are out there. So that if the adenosine doesn't bind, then you don't get that tired signal, and that will happen when the caffeine's in there. But it's actually not the only place that the caffeine binds to. There's actually some other areas that are studied with other proteins, such as this MAO protein, which is a monoamine oxidase. And so instead of this protein being a receptor to detect things like GPCRs, it's actually in the enzyme family, where this protein's job is to chop up other molecules and break them down. But you can see that right here we have this very similar motif we talked about, where it has the 5-member ring and 6-member ring with that molecule as well.
The hexagon and the pentagon there, yep.
Yeah, exactly. And so, one other studied mechanism of caffeine is actually binding with these MAOs and actually inhibiting the breakdown of molecules like adrenaline. And so this could be another way that people feel more alert and energized. It's not just that they're feeling tired, but they might actually be building up more adrenaline because they're not able to break it down as much because the caffeine's also interacting with some of these enzymes.
Got it. So this lock or...
Viu que interessante? Se eu entendi bem, a cafeína, além de ajudar no processo do corpo não sentir-se, não compreender que está cansado, porque ela habita um espaço que deveria ser habitado por uma molécula que é produzida com um esforço físico para que o corpo identifique o cansaço, ela também interage em uma outra molécula que ajuda na produção da adrenalina. E a adrenalina faz com que a gente efetivamente sinta-se mais ativo, ou movimente-se mais. Muito interessante.
Or protein, essentially this job is to basically break down adrenaline, but similarly because caffeine can bound to this lock, the caffeine key, if you will, that it basically inhibits or disables your body from breaking down adrenaline. So you literally have more adrenaline floating around your body when you drink caffeine.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's a small molecule, it's going to spend some time in there, some time out. It's very fluid. You can see, larger molecules like this might actually, sort of stay in there for longer, or, if it's the right molecule, actually get broken down by this
Moléculas formam proteínas.
Caffeine, because it's so tiny and shares that very familiar hexagon-pentagon motif, can interact with the adenosine A2A receptor, as we saw. It could, bind in this one for a little bit and inhibit, adrenaline from getting into that binding site. So yeah, really, really cool molecule. I know that you enjoy your caffeine and coffee and green tea and drinks like that. But yeah, I hope that this was educational and kind of diving in the metaverse here, just kind of understanding the structure and understanding biology and how these things actually work.
Yeah, it makes sense why I'm more jittery when I drink coffee, right? Is that you literally can't break down the adrenaline as much. So, that's about it for this spatial recording. We have a bunch of spatial recordings available, so definitely check them out. You can, there's some others that show you how to build these small molecules and stuff like that as well. So thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next spatial recording.
Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you in the Science Metaverse.
Muito bom. Muito bom. Bom, é isso aí. Acho que 8 minutos depois eu compreendo as coisas, compreendo o mundo que me cerca melhor do que há 8 minutos, 9 minutos atrás. Muito, muito obrigado.